Welcome everyone. Super excited to have you here. Let's get started.
So this is the fourth MEA VMUG, and we're looking at a pretty fun session. And we can tell you how excited we are because we had a quick sneak peek on the slides, and we have a super guest for the session. Lisette, I'm gonna hand it over to you, and please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself. And yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Okay, Lisette, I'm an American living in the Netherlands for the last 12 years. And I run a company called Collaboration Superpowers, and we help people work together remotely. Mm-hmm. And usually it's through online workshops, but there's also a podcast where we interview people who are working remotely to find out their tips and tricks. And you've shown the book, so you see the book and all these tips and tricks and everything from the podcast, it's all in this book. So 400 pages of remote tips, and it's on Amazon. So get it there. Yeah, so that's a super short intro.
Thank you, Lisette, and everyone. Oh, we just want to make sure that you all have access to this Miro board. Please let us know if you don't. I'm just gonna go really quickly to the Zoom controls in the chat. Open that up. Where's my chat? Just want to make sure everyone did you receive the link to the Miro board? Can everyone join in here? I'm trying to see your cursors. Can you see like 8, 9, 10 people?
Yeah, but we're more in the Zoom call.
Yeah.
More participants. Okay.
It feels to be more people because we'll be doing some activities together. So this Miro board will be available to you throughout this entire talk and also after the webinar is done. So you're going to be able to come in, look at the slides, click on the links, make sure you kind of extract all of the information that we covered in here. Before we jump into a quick icebreaker, we're just going to give you a few pro tips on how to use the Miro board. So we're going to have 4 really quick commands that you have to be aware of. Duplicating something like a sticky note or a shape, you can use that using Command or Control D on your keyboard by selecting, for example, let's select this. Let's create a quick sticky note. I see how it works. Let's create a sticky note, and I just hit Command D. I'll immediately duplicate it just in case you need more sticky notes. Then we have voting. This is a really nice feature of Miro, which we'll be using a couple of times in this session. So keep an eye out for
we'll be guiding you
how we're going to use that. Pointer and pan. This is pretty simple. Right now I'm using the pointer, but if you click V, you can basically swap in between different functions. Okay. Then for undo, just as any other software, you can just Command or Control Z if you've done a mistake. Maybe you've moved one of the slides or anything that happens. If you've done something, make sure to Command or Control Z to go back. And now for just a really quick exercise, we didn't want to ask you where you're from just now because we have this icebreaker in here. So I would kindly ask everyone to hop into Miro, open up the Miro board that you got in your email, and look at this pretty little map of the world that we've put in here. We're gonna have a really simple exercise. We would ask everyone to add an icon using the Miro icon feature. If you follow my screen right now, you have the instructions on the board. Click on the 3 dots on the left side panel, click on Icon Finder, and just type something that represents you as an element. We're from Transylvania, the land of Dracula, so I'm just gonna put a vampire in here. And I'm just gonna put it from, place it on the map, whatever you're joining from. Don't make it like super huge to cover the entire country, but just put it somewhere that it might feel is also a geography test to see if you can find your home on a map. So make sure to drag your, oh, there we go. People are already doing it. Make sure to drag the icon, find the icon and place it in your appropriate area where you're joining from. And then the second step would be to add, oh, we have something in the chat. Let's see. Why can't I see the chat? There we go. Can you put the link again into the Miro board? Oh, Brittany will paste that. Okay, perfect.
Perfect.
All right, cool. So yeah, drop your, oh, the pink icons. Yeah, perfect. Drop your icons in the appropriate place, and also make sure to add a comment telling us your first name and the company that you, and the location, the actual location. Because for example, us, we are in Transylvania. So click on C on your keyboard or on the comment icon on the left side and zoom in here and just add a comment and just say Anna and Raz, and we're from Cluj. And just hit enter so we can let you see where you're from. It's a quick little exercise. Andrew London. We have Eric from Switzerland. Great choice of icon, Eric. This is perfect. So representative.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, who's joining for them? Oh, who's that? This here.
I'm in the ocean. I didn't want to cover up all of Europe with my icon.
We also have
Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas, and San Francisco, Natalie. Okay.
Fantastic.
Many great people. Okay, so a nice spread. Although this is the EMA region VMUG, we have people tuning in from all the way from the US and Canada, which is awesome. All right, we'll give you a few more seconds to drop in your pins. Oh, like Berlin.
Someone from London is very moody.
Who's moody from London?
If you check the emoji.
Oh yeah.
Or not moody, suspicious.
Suspicious, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Perfect. Thank you everyone for dropping in your comments. What we want to do is we're going to have a dedicated Q&A at the end of the session. So this section, the starting conversation early, was basically our board where we will we'll collect all the questions. So ideally, we'd like to collect all the questions in the Zoom chat. So make sure if you have any questions along the way, make sure to drop in the Zoom chat, and we'll keep our eyes open, making sure to collect all of them here.
Or you can write directly.
Or if you want, if you're feeling crafty, you can also add yours. Just say what is ABC, whatever. Just drop your questions in the sticky notes, and once the conversation is done, we're going to jump back in, try to answer all of your questions. All right. Perfect. And now for the grand moment of the entire session, we're going to invite Lisette to take the virtual stage. Lisette, I will stop sharing so you can take over the screen and you can start sharing and walk us through your amazing presentation, which as we said at the beginning, it's amazing. We promise.
No pressure at all. And as a disclaimer, I'm very new to Miro. I mean, I'm not new to virtual whiteboards or anything. So actually, I'm going to be asking for some tips along the way from you guys, Raz and Anna,
of course,
to do it. And my first tip is going to be, how do I go from one slide to the other seamlessly?
Okay, well, we're going to walk you through the entire thing. Let's do it.
So I'll share my screen.
Yeah, let's do it.
Do it like this.
Perfect. Loading. All right. Brilliant. Now, the easiest way you can do this is just click on the 0, 1, like the first frame where the 0, 1 is. Yeah, just click on the 0, 1 thing. And then from the bottom, you have right at the bottom left, you have presentation mode, the second icon from left to right says presentation mode. And now you can just use your arrows to move. If you hit right, you're going to go to slide number 2 and so on.
Whoa, totally great. Okay, got it. I'm in and running. So thanks for all the tips. That's easy enough. Love it when it's easy. So thanks everybody. And I realize these are weird days and that we're all going remote right now because we have to, not necessarily because we want to. So what I'm hoping to do today is share some of the tips and tricks that I've collected from the book and from the interviews. Oops, I think I have to be here. From the book and from the interviews. If you want to hear the interviews, they're all available for free online on YouTube or so video or audio format, and of course the book. So that's where all these tips come from. And I always like to say, like, I am not the remote expert. I've just collected the most tips from everybody. So it's not that I'm this expert. It's just that I have a lot of tips that I'm hoping to share. So I hope that they're useful for you. And the thing that I've really learned about this, about remote working over the last 5 years, is that there is no one right way to do it. And I wish there were, because man, I'd make $1 million with my silver bullet solution that I'd sell to everybody. But unfortunately, there is no one right way. What works for one team doesn't always work for another team. And so it's really just a matter of finding what's going to work for you. And sometimes the solution seems like, oh, this will totally work. And then for some irrational reason, it doesn't. Totally fine. When it doesn't, move on to the next thing. So the name of the game in the remote working sphere, I think, is experimentation. What works for you? But there is, when we get it right, there is a huge advantage. And that is, for the people that are working remotely, we get freedom. freedom to choose our workspaces, freedom to work where we're most productive, freedom to train for triathlons, spend more time with our families, avoid the commute, whatever the freedom looks like for you. When we get remote working right with our companies, we can have freedom. And for the companies, of course, when we get remote working right, we get a stronger, more connected workforce. And I used to use this example all the time of, even if you don't want remote working or flexible working with your company, you should still have the processes in place to be able to work remote just in case something happened. The examples I always used was like sick kids at home or transportation problems or bad weather. I had never in my wildest dreams would have imagined like a deadly global virus sweeping the world being one of the reasons. So here we are. So it's good to have these processes in place. And I think a lot of companies from here on out are going to have these processes in place. So that's where we're going to. And the structure of what I want to talk about today is twofold. So I want to start with how do we as individuals perfect our own games and work remotely? And then how do we work together online? So there's sort of two components to that. Perfecting our own game and then working together online. So we'll go through a number of those components. But I'd like to start with how do we perfect our own game and how do we tend to our own needs? And I think it's more important than ever to really be paying attention to this, because I'm hearing a lot of, it's funny, the number one question that I'm getting from people, from hundreds of emails that I'm getting is, I'm working all the time now. Like now I've gone remote, I'm working all the time. And that seems to be the biggest issue. So managers are always afraid of letting people go remote because they think they're going to be lazy. The problem is the opposite is true. Burnout is far more prevalent than laziness. And I think that that's where managers' focus really needs to be. So we don't need to be monitoring employees. We need to make sure that they're getting enough rest and taking time off. So we'll talk about how to do that. Now, the first thing I always say with remote is you want to find your why, right? Because if you're going remote because you want to be a digital nomad, that's very different than wanting to spend more time with your kids at home or wanting to avoid the commute. At the moment, everybody's why is the same, which is, well, we've got a deadly virus sweeping the world and everybody has to stay home. That's why we're going remote. But when this is all over and you have a chance to reflect about why you particularly would like to be remote, it is really good to know what your reason is, because you want to design around that reason. So digital nomad lifestyle is going to look very different than a parent's lifestyle, for example. So after we find our why, then it's time to find where we're most productive. And that is different for everybody. So I would encourage people, try different places when this is all over. So, for me, my home office, that's my thing. For my husband, he hates working from home. He is totally tortured right now because he hates being and working at home. And so, he went out, he tried it a couple of years ago, hated it, and decided to get an office. Some people need co-working spaces. Some people like hotel lobbies, coffee shops, whatever it is, try different places and then optimize your work for those places. So if you're somebody who likes a variety of different workspaces, make sure you optimize your work for where you're going. So for instance, if you're going to travel on a train, make sure you have some tasks that you can do while you're on the train. Or, you may want to tag your tasks so you can separate it out by location. But really it's not to be underestimated on finding the place where you're most productive. It's harder than people think in terms of how to find that place. So the idea is experiment with what works for you and then optimize those space for your task. And then the next one in terms of perfecting our own game is we need to find our own daily rhythms. So for instance, my rhythm is I wake up, I read the news with a cup of coffee, and then I go straight into work, and still in my pajamas and everything. I just go straight to my computer because that's just where my headspace is at. And then a couple hours later, when I'm starting to think like, oh man, it's 10:30 in the morning and I'm still in my pajamas, this is not good. That's when I take a break. I go for a run. I go and do something, run an errand, and I come back and do some more, and then I break for dinner. And then in the very end of the day, I just kind of wrap up. So that's sort of my rhythm. But for other people, it looks entirely different. Some people get up and go running right away, or they wait till the evening. So you really have to find your rhythm. What works for you? Are you a morning person or an evening person? Whatever it is, design your day around that. Because it's going to, not everybody is 9 to 5, which I think is a really compelling reason to go remote, is because we're definitely not all 9 to 5. nor should we have to work that way if it doesn't work for us. And then another thing I recommend is having some sort of a startup and a wind down ritual, especially if you work from home. You know, your commute might be 10 meters. So some people, what they're doing is they're actually taking a walk around the block before they start at home. And that is their startup ritual. So instead of commuting, you can actually just take a walk, that's your ritual, or you have some other thing that you do. But most productivity apps and planners will recommend some sort of ritual. Like for instance, I use the Michael Hyatt Full Focus Planner to start my day. And in the very beginning of the book, I haven't filled it out yet because it's a new book, but in the very beginning, they actually have a spot for where is your startup ritual. If I could find it. So for instance, like startup ritual, wind down ritual, how does it work for you? So that's how important it is. So really figure out what is your ritual for that, and experiment with different stuff.
What's the name again so I can find the link of that agenda and send it to people?
The Full Focus Planner.
Okay,
it's
I'll
by
do
Michael
that.
Hyatt. Yeah, if you just Google Full Focus Planner, thanks.
I'll
Yeah, because I
Thank you.
totally can't multitask for sure.
No, you keep on with the presentation. We'll do that.
A lot of people are going to say like, wait a second, you're a total virtual, remote virtual app person. Why are you using a paper planner instead of a to-do app? Well, it's because I found for me, virtual to-do lists just don't work for me. I'm a tactile person. I've got to write stuff down. So I was writing all my to-dos on sticky notes, thinking, oh, I'll put it in my app in a bit. And then I just ended up with a big pile of sticky notes. So it turns out for me, a paper planner is what works. And yes, I have to carry this thing everywhere with me. That's the downside. But there's so pros and cons to everything. But find what works for you. The next one is the boundaries. This is what people have been emailing me about, is find your boundaries, because you cannot work 24/7, nor should you. And you know, the idea of waking up early and attending to stuff and then going and doing it until 11 o'clock, and in between you've got this whole work-life fusion. It turns out that it's not that healthy for the majority of people. So one thing that people do is, one, have a dedicated space where you do your work. If you can't have a dedicated space, maybe you just have a room divider that you put up with that demarcates something mental that makes a dedicated space for you. But have a place where you can do your work, and then set your own working hours. For example, for mine, I have 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. I have to do all my work within those hours. And no, I don't work entirely 12 hours, but I don't give workshops after 9 p.m. or before 9 a.m. It's an agreement I made with my husband. So those are my set hours. And at 9 p.m., I close my eyes and I drop everything that I was working on, as stressful as it is, and I just close the door, and then that's it for the day. I don't look at any more stuff. So, you know, setting your own working hours, it all sounds really simple, but it's not. There's a catch. Some people use separate devices. So like I use my laptop in my office and my iPad when I go down and I want to watch movies at night. And the other one is setting the expectations with your family. Because I can imagine, I mean, right now people are working at home and you're with your families, and it's really difficult to focus when your family's around. I mean, I just have my husband at home. We don't even have kids. And even that, I had to get a special thing on my door that says, do not come in. I'm actually in the middle of something right now. So make sure to just set expectations with your family on this. And social needs. So right now, this is actually a really, really big thing, because we're all sort of on lockdown, yet how do we attend to our social needs? So there's a lot of options online, which is great. I mean, Zoom and all the other video conferencing tools are really opening up a huge world for different people. But I want to show you some other options that maybe you hadn't thought of before. And that is, there are a bunch of virtual co-working spaces out there where you can actually work with people online. One very simple one is this app called FocusMate. And in FocusMate, you basically get paired up with a random person from anywhere in the world. You start your hour with, hey, what are you going to get done this hour? And everybody sets an intention. Then you work for an hour. And at the end of the hour, you get back together and you say, okay, what did you accomplish? So it's a bit of an accountability partner. That's what you're seeing on the right hand. Now, on the left-hand side, this is a colleague of mine in California, and I'm in the Netherlands. And we've been working together virtually for the last 8 years. And it started because we were writing a book together, and after the book was done, we just ended up liking working together so much that we've continued working to this day. And what we do is once a week, it used to be every day, but now it's once a week, we just get on Zoom and we turn the videos on to say hello, 5 minutes of girl talk. How was your date last night? What's going on? And then we turn the video off and we keep the sound on and we just continue to work together for a few hours. It's just a work session. Gretchen and I do nothing similar. She's an academic life coach and we just work on our own projects, but we're doing it together. And that simulates what it's like to work with somebody in the office together. So you can do that. And if you want to take it one step further, there are actually virtual co-working spaces out there. Remo is one of them. There's about 20 different competitors. So you can actually get into a virtual space together and work together. So here what you're seeing is a floor plan. Each one of these individual rooms is a room, and you can only hear and see the people that are in the same room with you. But if you want to move to another room, like if I want to go play pool, I might go and talk to these guys here and say, hey, come play pool with me. And then we go into the game room and we hang out together in the game room and have coffee or play a virtual game or something. So these kind of virtual spaces are actually going a really long way to help people feel more of a sense of camaraderie and presence with their remote colleagues. And I would say in this time right now, you know, the next couple of months of lockdown, virtual co-working spaces in places like these, make use of them, because the presence that you feel is surprisingly, it's surprising how much there is. Like it actually feels like you're with people in the office all day. So all of these things sound relatively simple, right? We all know, like we've got to find our why and we have to set our boundaries and find where we're most productive. It all sounds really simple. And I put this slide up here to remember. It sounds really simple, but in actuality, these things are shockingly difficult. And I make the analogy with weight loss. Like we all know the formula for weight loss, right? It's like eat less and move more. But anybody that has tried to lose weight knows it is way harder than just that. And that the same thing goes for remote working. Like it's easy to say, oh, set your boundaries and get a different device. But the actual implementation of it and doing it on a regular basis over and over and over again, really, really hard. Almost nobody gets it right all the time. And it's a matter of just starting again. Like, okay, I stayed up too late doing this, and I'm not going to do it again tomorrow. Start again. So that's why working from anywhere is both awesome and horrible. Awesome in that, man, we get a shocking amount of freedom, and horrible because we also get a shocking amount of freedom. And there are now no boundaries. There's no physical boundaries. We have to put them in place for ourselves. Super hard to do. So that's going to take us to our first poll question. And actually what I thought we'd do is we do breakout rooms really quickly to discuss, and then we can come back and do a poll. So I'll stop sharing my screen for a second. And oh, everybody's got the Miro board open. So maybe Raz and Anna, what we can do is I'd love, if people are open to it, you know, we don't have to participate, but I would love to send people into breakout rooms and just do a 4-minute discussion with your group on what of these things is difficult for you. What are you personally struggling with in this time? Mm-hmm. So Raz and Anna, if we could break people into like groups of 4, I don't know how many people are on the call, 28, so maybe just groups of 4, and we can just see. So,
yeah, it seems to be, we're as hosts, we can hop on and off of each breakout room. So I'll set that up. So you'd like 4 people in a group, right?
4 people in a group, and everybody just take 1 minute, describe what is it that you're struggling with right now in terms of working remotely in the viral times.
Okay, so how about I create 6 breakout rooms, since like 27 and kind of keeps adjusting. So I'll create 6 breakout rooms with 4 to 5 participants per room. Is that okay?
Yeah, perfect.
Right, perfect. Everyone, how long should we keep the breakout room open?
4 minutes.
4 minutes.
4 minutes.
Okay. Perfect, everyone. You're gonna get summoned right back in the whole session after the breakout room. So we're gonna start a timer for 4 minutes, starting now. Open all rooms. You've been randomly assigned. Let's go. So we're gonna hop on and off. See ya a bit later. Yeah, Lisette, you're free to take over.
Okay, so thank you for that experiment. I just really wanted to see if breakout rooms are having a short discussion. It's good. You meet new people and you can and see what people are thinking about. And I think hopefully people can see that it already creates more camaraderie, even just by having a short conversation with a few people in a group. So my tip for you is if you're running online meetings, make use of breakout rooms. If you have any more than like 5, 6 people in your meeting, breakout rooms can be a great way for decision making and things like that. So what I'd love to do now is to do a poll on the slide. Let's see, I'll share my screen again. And then Raz and Anna, if you guys could show us how you can do a poll. I'd love to see we've now, everybody in the small breakout room has shared sort of personal experience, but let's see overall, what are people struggling with given the different options on the screen. So I'll share again.
Lisette, let me take over the screen so everyone can actually see how we set this up. So I'll just share my screen real quick. And everyone, what we would like you to do, right at this point, I'm going to highlight this slide, which is how can you perfect your own game. What we're going to do, we're going to use a voting feature in, oh, sorry about this. Let me close this and close this one. So here at the bottom, I'm just going to activate the Miro voting feature. I'm just going to call them exercise 1. How long, Lisette? How much time?
1 minute. 1 minute to vote.
Okay,
Super
1 minute. Quick. 1 vote per person?
1 vote per person. Yeah, just the one thing that you're struggling with that you could probably do better at, that you think would be
okay. Now we're gonna select the area in which we're going to vote.
Yeah.
So we make sure that we do not place our vote.
Yeah, on the background or in something else. Just gonna restrict the voting area to this. And is everyone ready? Everyone go to your Miro board right now. It's also in the chat if you haven't joined. And we're gonna give you 10 seconds for everyone to go in the Miro board, and we're gonna start the voting session whenever everyone's ready. So you're gonna have these 6 options here. Make sure to click on the one that you believe is the answer to the question, how can you perfect your own game? And voting starts in 3, 2, 1. You have 1 minute to place your vote. Go.
Whoa.
Not with a check mark.
But that's okay, I guess.
So go to your Miro board, and you should, if you're on the board, you should be able to select one of the options.
Yeah, once you hover, you can see that you have there an option.
Yeah, you can. Please do not select the board. So Eric, I see you're selecting the find the boundaries. In order for people to be able to vote on that, please deselect that. Okay, and your votes are hidden until the timer goes off.
I'm so curious. 15 seconds, and I'm so curious to see what are people personally struggling with.
10 seconds. 5.
Exciting.
Okay, voting session is done. Let's see the results. It's processing right now, so you can switch back to the screen sharing if you want to see the results. It's compiling. So we have, there you go.
Okay, so the biggest challenge right now is finding my daily rhythm, then followed by find my boundaries. Third place, find my social needs. And the fourth one, find where I am productive. Agreed.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Yeah. So my tip for folks in terms of these are weird times with the virus, and my tip for folks is really be patient with yourself. Give yourself lots of breaks. You're not going to be as productive as you would like to be in these times. Weird things are going on. It's very frustrating. So I think, I mean, even I've been working remotely from this room. I mean, I lived quarantine for the last few years because I basically don't need to leave my house. Groceries are delivered, everything. And I am still feeling an enormous amount of stress just from the virus and all the situations that it's causing. So it's not remote work. It's more than that. It's the stress of the whole thing. So don't underestimate that.
Okay.
So, okay, should I share my screen again?
Yes,
and
please take over and continue with the presentation. Go for it.
So we've talked now about how we can perfect our own game, but it is really good then now to talk about once we've perfected our own game, how do we then work together online? And is this? So we'll go to, okay, now how do we do this online? And the first way that I would say is, one, we've got to create alignment, of course, as a team. And there's several ways of doing that, but what I always recommend for people is create a team agreement with your team. Define what normal behavior looks like for you. So for example, where are the files going to be stored? Do you need VPN access to get to it? What are the core hours, if any? What are the expected response times? Which tools are you going to be using for communicating? These all sound like very basic things, but when we go remote, we all have our own styles. Some people are phone people, some people are asynchronous people, some people love video, and as a team, we need to agree together on what we're going to use for working together. And a quick, conversation about just documenting how we're going to work together will save a lot of misunderstandings for the future. And I interviewed Beat Buhlmann, who was the head of EMEA for Evernote a year ago and their team at Evernote, they create etiquettes and normal behaviors for everything, like their meetings. They have etiquettes for how they behave in their meetings, how they handle email. It's like one email per subject line. And then if it's going to be a long email, summarize what you have to say at the top. They have all these different rules for as a team, how they've agreed to work together, how they use their calendar, what is supposed to be in their home office, like ergonomically, what do you need, like headsets, all these things. So they've gone through and just defined all their etiquettes for their team. And I think it's a really wise process. So on my website, I'll send the link out at the end. On the website, I've got templates for how to create your team agreements together. And there's a variety of different templates. There's a canvas that you can use, or there's just a set of questions that you can ask. It doesn't matter how you create your team agreement. What matters is that you have that conversation with your team. And I would say now, with everybody forced to go remote, it's a really good time to have that conversation, because you've already run into the pain, I'm sure, of how you're going to be working together, because everybody's just remote all of a sudden. So then the next way of the next thing that's important about working together online is, how do we create presence when we're online? And the number one way of creating presence is to turn your cameras on. And I know that most people, or a lot of people, don't like to turn their cameras on. However, it is undeniable that camera helps with camaraderie and presence on the team. So one more quick poll, and I don't know if you guys, if Raz and Anna, if you guys want to set this up, or we could just put icons or do something simple here. But I'd really like to know is, if you don't usually turn your camera on, why? What reason? Is it because you're just shy? You don't like seeing yourself on video? You're in your casual clothes, or maybe there's distracting things in your background? Probably you want to multitask without other people knowing it. This is a totally anonymous poll. And if you do turn your video on a regular basis, then turn on your video. So how are we going to do the polling on this? Is it the same as last time? Or should we do some drawing? Hope you guys are on mute.
Oh,
sorry.
Good catch. Okay, yeah, we're going to do it exactly the same way as we did before. I'm just going to open up the board, and I'm going to create a new poll just like we did before. Okay, so same thing. Everyone join the Miro board, create new voting session, exercise 2. Same 1 minute, 1 vote per person.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Let's restrict the area to a smaller one.
So many cursors.
So nice to see the cursors.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, if you're feeling bothered by everyone else's cursors, you can toggle them on and off by using the settings at the top right of your screen, if this buzz of colors is distracting you. Okay, we set the
on the shapes.
We're gonna make it on the shapes. And everybody ready for the vote? 3, 2, 1, go.
All right.
Boom.
So 1 minute to show why you don't turn your video on usually. Or maybe you do. Times are changing fast at this moment. They all say like remote work has moved ahead 10 years in 2 weeks. And I wouldn't say that far. I have bigger expectations for 10 years. I'm thinking like holograms and virtual reality and stuff, but we'll see. We'll see how we go. People right now are still struggling with Skype for Business and Spider phones. So virtual reality is a long way away.
20 seconds.
All right, 1 and
Done. Let's see the results.
How do I show the results? Or
let me.
Here, I'll stop sharing my screen. You can share yours.
Yeah, let's grab the screen. So the results are 11 for I do turn my video on.
Woohoo! Awesome. Okay, so we're talking great bunch of pros. So you've already got the first step of how do you create presence on your team. turning your videos on. So that's really awesome. Usually when I ask audiences, the #1 answer is you want to multitask without others knowing. And we'll get to that in a second, but I'll go ahead and I'll share my screen again and I'll continue.
Go ahead.
Okay, so seamless-ish. Okay, so I'm in presentation. Oops, I'm out of presentation. Now I'm in presentation, and I want to go to the next one. So some of the ways that people are using video, there's some creative, things going on. This is a team in Germany, and they've got one team here in another office in a city, and they've got their other team here. And what they've done is they've got this video monitor that's open. They've got the video and sound on all day, so that it simulates what it's like to work in the same room with each other. And on this left-hand side here, they've got a virtual task board. So I'm not sure what tool they're using. You can't really see it that well, but you know, as they get their tasks done, their sticky notes are moving along in their task board, and they're basically just talking to each other all day. So that's how one team is doing it. This is a team in Australia, and they have people that are working in Melbourne and a huge number of people that are working in their China office. So they've set up these big monitor displays all over their office so that they can regularly communicate with their colleagues in China. So you can now accidentally bump into your Chinese colleagues in the hallway now as you're walking by one of these screens. And they do their daily stand-ups here. You can see that they've got a little game area set up here, so they actually play video games together. They just hang out together sometimes, drinking beers, and this is how they keep their offices connected. So very creative use of that. And if we want to go just a little far into the weird, we've got drivable telepresence robots. Now, these are basically robots. You've probably seen them on The Big Bang Theory. That's where they kind of made a big splash, or that's where they really got their boost. But these are basically drivable robots. They're person height. You beam in just like on any video conferencing tool, and then you're able to drive yourself using the arrow keys on your keyboard. Now, at the Suitable Technologies office where they make these, they have 50% of their workforce in the flesh and 50% who beam in via robot every day, and this is how they work. So they actually have more virtual colleagues around than in-person colleagues. But it's only weird until you get used to it, and then it's not so weird anymore. And if you're wondering, you know, you can't really shake hands with people in robots or online anymore, but instead what we do is we fist bump. That's a much more 2D way of just saying hello, so just fist bump. So in the age of the coronavirus, no more elbows needed. We can actually virtually fist bump. It's totally okay. So continue to do that. And if we want to go even further out into the weird, I would say that virtual reality is going to start to make a splash. It is amazing. I just bought my Oculus Quest last week. Incredible experience, absolutely incredible experience. I think that this is definitely going to be the way that the future goes, especially when the sensory aspect with virtual reality comes into play, where we actually can feel people in the virtual space. That's going to be amazing. Smell can stay last. Nobody needs to smell anything, right? So that's one of the senses that can go. But actually, virtual reality is coming to be a real reality. And this tool here is called Roomy. And you go in and you go into your virtual office. You walk down the virtual hall into your virtual conference room. You stand around your virtual whiteboard and have your daily stand up there with your colleagues, all in remote, in virtual reality. So I know it sounds weird, but it is around the corner. And like I said before, holograms are actually becoming more and more a reality. If you Google the performance with Snoop Dogg and Tupac at the Coachella concert about, I don't know, 10 years ago now, they had Tupac on stage as a hologram performing with Snoop Dogg in the flesh. And if you didn't know it was a hologram, you would never know, because it was so realistic. So it's still a far way away, but I'm just showing some weird things to show what kind of presence options are becoming available in the future. And as much as I love to talk about the tools, the important thing to remember is it's not about the tool. Tools enable certain behaviors, and the behavior that we are trying to emulate with these tools is presence. And one of the ways that we can do that in a low-key way is just by working out loud and making our work more observable to others. So whether that's your daily stand-up or a tool that shows and makes your work visible, how can we make our work visible to others so that our colleagues know what we're doing? And it doesn't have to be minute by minute, but in general, people need to know what we're doing. Okay, so I want to be mindful of the time so that we end on time and there's maybe a little time for questions. But one of the important things online is camaraderie. And how do we build trust and have that sense of team, like that sense of fun when we're working remotely? It's even more important now than before. And one thing I'll say is, one, you definitely want to build it into your regular day so that it's not like a weird thing. And one of the ways that you can do that is simply by using icebreaker questions. So for example, what we did in the very beginning of where is everybody from? Great icebreaker question. If I were doing a meeting, the purpose of the icebreaker would be to get everybody to speak before the meeting starts. So you want to make sure that everybody is seen and heard. However, on top of that, you're getting to know people with various questions. So this question that you're looking at on the screen here is, take a picture of what's on your feet and show us what you're wearing. That's one type of icebreaker. And there's a whole bunch more. If you want to make it more professional, you could do something more like, what are you expecting to get from this meeting? Or what are you going to contribute? What expertise are you contributing to today's discussion? So it doesn't have to be silly questions like, favorite vacation spot or favorite food. It make it appropriate for the meeting. Another thing that is almost natural is group chat channels in any instant messaging tool that you're using, whether it's Slack or Microsoft Teams, whatever it is that you're using, having some sort of a casual chat channel where people can talk about their books or their pets, or there's people that have like humble brag. So when you've done something good, you want to kind of let your team know. Maybe you have a humble brag channel. But this is basically your virtual water cooler. This is where people hang out during the day. If you're not in a virtual office, they hang out asynchronously in an instant messaging tool. That's pretty common. And then the last one is, after you've built these kind of things into the day, you really want to schedule your serendipity, which sounds really odd. But the thing is that unless you're in a virtual office or in some sort of remote world, which the vast majority are not, you're never going to accidentally bump into somebody online. And so you can't leave your social needs to chance, because chances are they aren't going to happen. So for instance, this right here is people having a virtual coffee. Some teams, they've scheduled like every Wednesday at noon, whoever's around, they get together for virtual coffee online, and you just hang out and talk. The only rule is like no work talk. So you just hang out together. And that's a very simple way of doing it. Other people are doing virtual lunches, virtual adult beverages. You can do virtual, I think I have here quiz night. Lots of people are doing some form of quiz night. You can use there's so many great tools out there. Kahoot. I can't think of all of them now, but there's so many that you could do quiz nights with. No reason why you can't do that online. And then, of course, one thing that I tell people is video games are a great way of connecting. It's like the virtual ping pong table or the virtual foosball table in the office, right? So managers are like, video games? What do you talk? Why do I want my people to play games? And I'm like, well, games are a very important bonding experience. So if you can have video consoles in the office and people can just take a break and hang out with each other, that is a great way of building fun and team building into your day. So definitely don't forget about that. And I've got a huge list of virtual team building activities available online. It's just collaborationsuperpowers.com. You'll find it there if you just go to it. It's episode 247 if you can't, but it's easy enough to find there. And I would suggest just try stuff. There's people that are doing, like there's typing speed contests. There's try this recipe. Everybody sends each other a recipe and then everybody on the team has to bake it and then bring it and show off what happened. There's lots of weird, fun things that we can do online that people may not have thought of. Okay, last voting scenario, which is,
Okay.
what team building activities appealed to you out of these kind of things? And I should have put an other category there where people can add their own team building ideas. And maybe we could do a vote this time where people can just use icons and then maybe add your own team building ideas of what you've tried. That could be a fun way of doing this one.
Yeah.
Okay. First, should we go through the voting and then perhaps we can start reading them?
Lisette, do you want to do the voting as usual, or just have people choose emojis and put it on the option?
Let's do the choosing emojis and put it under option. And if you have a sticky note of a team building activity, then add it to the board here as well. What appeals to you? Hold
on, let me just do that real quick so people can have them here. So folks, you already know the drill. You have the icon feature on the left hand side, the one you use to put the thing on your map. So choose one emoji and put it on top of the appropriate answer. Just keep making sure not to cover the text. And you can also, if you want to add your own other answer, you can grab a sticky note like Nat just did and just drop them in here. You can make them various sizes. Let's say make them medium. That should be pretty good. I added one here, so actually duplicate that so you can have a range of options to choose from.
Oh, well done. You guys are really pros at this. I love it. Total pros. And I'm adding to the chat in the meantime some icebreaker ideas and the virtual team building activities so that people have all of those at hand while we're doing the voting.
So folks, make sure not to cover the answers. So I see someone is, Nat, can you move your sticky note down at the bottom so people don't get blocked and can read the, thank you so much.
Perfect.
Oh, let's see activities.
Virtual karaoke, I love it. Totally great idea. Totally great idea.
I like the virtual lunch coffee. We actually tried it yesterday with a group of friends. It was so refreshing to see them virtually, obviously.
Yeah, I've taught my parents now how to use Zoom. That took a long time. They were totally opposed. Virtual happy hours and yeah, so great.
Oh, virtual gym session, Will, that's amazing. We actually was talking to a few clients of ours that are in the fitness space. We said you should definitely do that. Just host virtual, like get one trainer to do like a virtual session
classes, yeah.
sometimes in the morning. Just make it for free for brand exposure. That's just an incredible idea. Great one.
Love it. Love it. So I'll try to.
I'm gonna lock these so people won't move them around. All right.
Yeah, virtual Lego challenge. Totally great.
Oh, nice.
So I feel like, you know, in these times, we can get really creative with what we try online. And that is actually happening. You know, there are choirs that are practicing together online. So it's weird, but I mean, all of these things, I would say yoga, you know, going to a yoga class is way more fun in person than it is doing it alone online. But doing it alone online is way better than nothing. And so that's sort of the times that we're in. Yes, a lot of these things are better in person, but man, it's so great that we can have the option of doing some of them online. Oh, this is totally great, you guys. PowerPoint karaoke. Okay, so I'm going to move on. Just we can keep adding things here because I think you guys will be sharing the board afterwards, and we can keep collecting the tips here. So this is totally great. So I'll continue. Sadly, I'd love to just stay here and hang out. So the last thing that I want to just mention is because when we're going remote, the way that we communicate is either through text and also through online meetings. And so I think it's really important to just quickly touch base on, I think it's important to learn how to host great online meetings. Because I always say people think that they want to be in the same room together, but actually what we really want is high bandwidth communication. We want to be able to talk to our colleagues as if they were in the room next to us, or like on Star Trek, right? It's like Lisette to Bridge, report. And then I want Bridge to answer ASAP, and I don't want coffee shop sounds or barking dogs or chirping birds or, you know, children screaming in the background. I want crystal clear communication. So that's what we're going for online. And the important thing to remember with this is remote meetings are different than in-person meetings. And a lot of people make the mistake of treating a remote meeting the same. And I would say they have to be designed and facilitated differently. I'll get into that in a second. So great online meetings are a combination of great infrastructure and great facilitation. So, and let me actually go back to the idea that remote is different, because what I would say is in person, you can come to a meeting and somebody can give a 20, 30-minute presentation in that meeting, and it's relatively interesting because you're there in person, you see everything. If you come to a remote meeting and somebody gives that presentation, it's boring because online presentations are by nature just a little bit more boring. Why come to a meeting when we're all hanging out together and essentially watch a video together? So what I would say is that if you're going to do a presentation, record the presentation beforehand, send it to people before the meeting so that they can prepare, and use your online time for discussions and decision making, and not necessarily brainstorming or watching presentations or reading documents. Every meeting's different, but those are sort of the differences in terms of online. And in the past, this is what online meetings used to look like, right? The old spider phone in the middle of the table and people leaning over like, hey, Bob, it's Lisette, can you hear me? Those are days, I wish they were more days of the past than they are, but most companies still have these horrible things in the center of the table. That is not what we want. What we want is something more like this, where The remote participants are present in the room. You can see them and you can hear them, and they can see and hear you. So this is a hybrid meeting, you know, so some people are remote, some people are in person. They are the hardest type of meeting. Right now, everybody's remote, which is the best, but everybody's remote because of the virus, which is not the best. But in terms, the same principles apply. We will all want to be able to hear and see each other online. And there's some great tools out there. Again, I love tools, but it's not about the tool. But things are like the Meeting Owl, which is a 360-degree microphone and camera, which will auto-focus on the person who's speaking. So if the remote participant is calling in, you see what's at the top. You're seeing everybody in the room, and you see who spoke last up close. So it just helps you orient yourself to what's going on and who's speaking in a quicker way. So these kind of things exist now, and I think we need to be replacing the old spider phones with some up-to-date technology. And like I said before, we really want to design our meetings differently. You want to be prepped first and then use your online time for discussions and decision making. That online time is really, really valuable. And I would say for every meeting, it's important to, one, start and stop on time and have an agenda, and have a facilitator who makes sure that you're getting through the agenda items and that everybody has a chance to speak. So a facilitator is not the person who is in charge. They are the person that's making sure the agenda is being gotten through. And one of the tips that I have for hybrid meetings is, if you're in a mixed meeting and some people are remote and some people are in person and two people start talking at once, favor the remote person because they have less context and it's harder for them to interrupt. So that is a simple meeting etiquette that you can put in place right away that will help equalize your remote and in-person participants. And there's hundreds of small tips like that. Another tip, for instance, in those hybrid meetings might be position the people that are in person to face the remotes on the screen. So you're not necessarily sitting in a U shape, you're sitting more in a movie theater shape. So now you're facing each other and everybody's more easily seen. Small adjustments like that can really do a lot for your online meetings. So I have to take a breath, I get all excited. So to end this, just to recap, we're going more and more remote. At the moment, everybody's forced, which is not the ideal situation. However, I'm hoping there are some tips in here that will help you get your remote situation a little bit more better. And remember that there is no one right way. It's a series of small things that we massage into place to make our remote teams high performing. And be very patient with yourself and your colleagues during these times, because it's especially stressful right now. But when we get it right, we as people have ultimate freedom to work where we're most productive and do the things that we love and actually design our own lifestyles, which never before in history has this been possible. So it's really great that we can take advantage of it. And companies, when we get remote working right, we get a stronger and more connected workforce, and our companies are less vulnerable to strange pandemics and other things that might come up. I mean, who would have guessed? So that we can keep functioning and location is no longer an issue. And in order to be high performing, it's really about perfecting our own game, finding what works for us, and learning how to work together online and be present with our colleagues online. So I wanted to end this by just giving an offering to folks. If you go to collaborationsuperpowers.com/superkit, you can actually download what I have, my remote working success kit, but it has a whole other pack of icebreakers, tips for time zones, meeting tips, management tips, all things. You just download a whole package at once. And so you get a bunch of those. So I wanted to just stop there, and we're right. Oh, I'm over time. I apologize.
Lisette, we actually have 1 hour and 30 minutes reserved. So
oh, great. Okay. So, but I'll stop the talking there, and and I'll link to it. Yes, in the
we're trying to copy now the link.
Okay, great. Thanks. I keep misspelling it because nerves and stuff. So here we go.
It's in the chat. Let me make sure I send it to everyone.
Oh, okay.
There you go. And I'll also link it in the Miro board because we can
make sure.
links. Yeah, just gonna add it
at the end
here. Yeah, right at the end where everyone's.
Or maybe just put it somewhere near Lisette's profile, because it's gonna be just up front.
Yeah, you're right. I'm just gonna put it here near Lisette's photo right at the beginning. It's gonna link everything.
I'm seeing Khan's background, and I'm feeling competitive, so I'm gonna change mine to a different bridge on the Enterprise. Star Trek fans unite.
By the way, so my hometown is actually called Vulcan.
Just
Vulcan. It is.
It's so fun.
Cool.
Okay.
All right.
Thank
Wow.
you, Lisette, so much. I think this presentation was just fantastic.
Yep.
We've learned a lot.
It was awesome. Thank you so much, and I'm sure everyone here can agree. And we just want to see really what your thoughts were on the entire session. So what we would like to ask of you is, let me just share my screen real quick to show you where this is. You can follow our screens. We have the section we say we'd love to get your feedback, and in here, if you could
zoom in.
Oh, you can zoom in. Let me just fix this real quick. Long press to unlock. I think this was perfect. So what we'd like you to do is, as you can see, we have some voting dots here on the right. So just making sure everyone can follow where we are. Just look for the yellow shape that kind of indicates we'd love to get your feedback if you zoom out of the board. And if we're looking at the first quadrant here at the top, what we've done is we've created this two-axis system. We kind of splits into 4 areas. You learned a lot, but doesn't apply to you. You learned a lot and can apply it all. You can apply the little that you learned, or you didn't learn much. So make sure to drag your dots in the appropriate area where you feel all of the knowledge that Lisette has offered you think will impact your work and everything has to do with remote. So make sure to start a timer here for 30 seconds.
What I love about this voting system is, one, it's engaging for other people, and it's really visual, so people can instantly see. And so I would encourage, if you're doing work with teams, visualize your processes as much as possible and put these kind of things in, because it sure helps a lot, especially across languages, of course, right? Because pictures are universal and text and words are not.
Yeah.
So
the point is that you saw that we have a built-in voting feature in Miro, but we personally, when we do our design sprints and all our remote workshops, we always use the vote, mainly because it kind of replicates the in-person feeling of taking a voting dot off of the thing and peeling it off and just putting it on the board. And it kind of gives you this like visual heat map of things. So we're looking really good. Great job, Lisette.
Yep.
you guys can be brutally honest. I've bombed many a webinar, so feel free to. I've got the hair on my chest. So.
There's someone giving like a huge dot.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, for that bit of feedback. And we'd like to get your thoughts a little more in depth on this. So we're going to do like the accolades, improvements, and suggestions exercise. Think about the things that went well, the thing that could be better, and what would you like to see next? So drag the sticky notes from the left side, and you can double click on them to start writing. So all the things that you think went well, the things that could be better, and the things that you think should come next, things you'd like to learn more about. This will also help us as hosts and the folks over at Miro to think about the next sessions that we want to do for these VMUGs. So we're going to give you 3 minutes for this. I'm going to start a timer again for 3 minutes for everyone to kind of put in their ideas here. So start.
Should put some background music next time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to have like a.
I think it was Uber conference that had a really funny background sound.
There is a way to do it, and in fact, I can't remember the name. I have to look it up. I have it here on my site. I think there's a plugin that just where you can watch movies together with other people. Ooh. And I have it here. It's called Google Chrome has a plugin called Netflix Parties. So you can actually watch movies together, and it includes a chat window and a play and pause button. So you can pause and play all at the same time. So if people want to like go for a bathroom break or make more popcorn or something, you can like pause and then come back and hang out and watch movies together. So it's called Netflix Party. Here, I'll send everybody a link to it.
Lisette, it looks like people really like the breakout rooms. We should do more of those.
Oh, great. Yeah, I think they're super powerful, really easy. and a great way to bond with new people.
So.
And I'll just quickly add also my COVID-19 resources. This is a page live on my website where I've been collecting things that people are asking during these virus times. So just for
perfect.
folks.
So yeah, if you can give us the link like here at the top of this board where your
Oh yeah.
is, we kind of link the full focus planner, the kit. If you have anything in there, we can add all of the resources there so people can check it out.
Come back to it. Great. I think these kind of boards, what a wonderful way to visualize things together and gather feedback all in one place, and that it can be accessed by anybody at any time. Totally awesome.
So how do you like Miro? Said you're a novice to, but what are your thoughts so far?
Yeah, super powerful. It's you'll be seeing me in here way more often.
Should I bring our emoji? So we have 3 emojis.
Yeah, we also have kind of like this signature toys that we kind of display, and it's kind of like a part of the brand. Pass one here. Yeah, these are our
So they're like real size emojis.
This is not real size.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's totally awesome. Oh, I've got a card actually that I never get to use. That maybe this is the only this is from an old card pack of super cards, but it's actual size. So your emojis are actual size.
Okay, time is up, folks.
All right.
Perfect. Amazing. Thank you, everyone. And just in closing, before we wrap everything up, we open up for a few questions for Q&A. So we're going to be moderating those. Let's take the first few questions, drop them in the chat, and we'll read them out loud for Lisette to answer. Who wants to go first? Drop your questions in the chat, and we'll type them up and also try to capture Lisette's answer. So Lisette, one question I would have, I want to start because I'm really curious. How do you as a facilitator keep people engaged and you make sure they're focused when you go into a remote session? What are your best tips and tricks on keeping people focused, especially folks who are new to remote work?
Well, I would say in remote meetings, one, keep presentations to a minimum. The rule of thumb is no longer than 5 to 7 minutes before you stop presenting and do some sort of discussion or activity. So if you're having remote meetings where it's just a broadcast, you might as well make a video of yourself and broadcast it. So in your meetings, you want to keep it engaging as possible. Turning the cameras on always helps. And then I do an exercise with teams. This is part of the workshop that I deliver. I do an attention exercise because active attention is incredibly important. And there's actually a wonderful quote by Nancy Klein that says, "The quality of your attention can determine the quality of another person's thought."
Mm-hmm.
The quality of your attention determines the quality of another person's thought. When somebody is really listening to you, it helps you think better. You know, they're like, oh yeah, and it kind of stirs the brain. And the activity that I do in my workshop is I break people up into pairs and I say, okay, the first person is going to start talking. You talk about anything that you like and go for about 30 seconds until you've really got that other person engaged. And then that other person, after 30 seconds, is going to distract themselves. Mm-hmm. They're going to pick up their phone. They're going to simply get up and walk away. Or they're going to turn their back on the person and see what happens to the conversation. Mm-hmm. And you'll see what happens is it completely derails the conversation because that person is no longer able to think because they're being distracted. Mm-hmm. Now, there's a few weirdos that can totally talk through, and they usually tend to be school teachers and parents because of children. You can totally just talk through the distraction. Is a couple of types of people that can do that. But in general, what it does is it does highlight to the team how important focused attention is. And I would say that even in this session, I'm breaking one of my #1 rules, which is don't go longer than 45 minutes without taking a break. So I would say, first of all, your online meetings should be as short as possible, absolutely as short as they possibly could be. If it's longer than 45 minutes, take a 5 to 10 minute break. That's sort of the rule of thumb. And I learned that from interviewing NASA because they have these sort of all day virtual meetings with scientists all over the world, and that's their rule of thumb is 10-minute break for every 45 minutes of meeting.
That's great. We also do that. It's a really, really strong facilitation tip that we also do. And what we found to be super engaging to people is to give them a sense of purpose. Like this all has to do with the way you prepare for a remote session. It's about how people know why they're there and what their contribution is. Because what we've seen in our work sessions, in our workshops, is that people feel like, oh, I should be doing something else. I have no motivation to be in here in the first place. So kind of making it really clear what is expected of people will get them prepared, right? And that way they intrinsically do not want to not be engaged.
Yeah.
I worked for a company once where the rule was no meetings at all, but if you had to have a meeting, you have to convince people why it was important that they come to your meeting.
Exactly.
That's super powerful. Okay, awesome. One more question from the audience is, which virtual office tools would you recommend?
My personal favorite is Sococo, S-O-C-O-C-O. That's my personal favorite. But there's another one called Remo, R-E-M-O. That's also really good. And Walkabout Workplace is also really good. But Sococo, I think, in terms of functionality and ease of use, that's the best one on the market right now.
Okay. You want to add something?
I guess that one more thing is that I think that you also mentioned this, what we found to be super useful on keeping people engaged overall, along with the purpose and having like a task to give them, is visual storytelling and having a visual support for every single meeting. No matter if you're using Miro, if you're using PowerPoint, whatever you're using, make sure that you have a visual support to help you out with the meeting.
Yeah, I mean, imagine this webinar if you didn't have any slides and you would just talk and that's it. It makes all the difference. Okay.
Yeah, I've got a webinar on my website if you want something like that.
Oh, cool. Should also link your podcast here. Or can people find it on the website?
Yeah, everything's on the website.
Okay, perfect. All right, folks. Last chance to ask Lisette any questions. Like she's the MVP of remote work and remote collaboration.
Just the most excited, not the expert. Just excited.
We're calling you the expert because you sound
okay.
Folks, any other
I'm just
questions?
really excited about what remote work offers, because I mean, I should say it all started because I was working for this guy who was building an online project management tool because he didn't want to die. And he thought that if he could just get the right scientists together, sharing their data, that they could solve the problem of aging. And my mind just like exploded when he was telling me this. I was like, what in the world is this? But then I started thinking about it. I'm like, oh, think about climate change. I mean, this pandemic, if we are not collaborating globally with each other on finding a cure, you know, it's way worse than if we are. So, you know, it's the things, if we can just take location out of the equation, think of the amazing things we can do remotely. Just amazing. That's what I'm personally so excited about.
Absolutely right. Great point. Okay, everyone. In closing, before we wrap everything up, and we say a huge thank you to Lisette for sharing her great knowledge and answering the questions and the nice exercises. We hope you really enjoyed it. We can continue the conversation, so you can join the Miro online community. If you go to the board and click on this, you see this kind of a tiny Miro. Oh, actually open that up. You can click on the link to go to the Miro online community. We are there. We're gonna create there are specific topics that you can join, like whether you're looking for remote workshops or remote collaboration, or have questions about Miro or whatever that might be. Make sure to check out the online community. The two of us are personally answering a lot of questions there, so we're active. We're checking the questions very often. So any question you have about remote facilitation, tips and tricks, design sprints, workshops, anything related to that, go ahead and check out the Miro online community, as well as the event site. We do these VMUGs every single month. Next month, we're going to have an amazing speaker once more, something a little bit more interesting. So make sure to check out that event link for other events. And yeah, thank you everyone so much for being here. Really
step away from your laptops. Like before you go back to work or do anything, take a break. Yeah, step away.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, Raz.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect. All right, perfect.
Thank you, everyone, and
thanks, everybody.
See you
on love.
Miro community.
See you online.
See you there. Bye-bye. Take care. Stay safe.
Or on the Starship.
And keep an eye out for the recording for this session. Thanks a lot. Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.